To the Middle East, and a British reporter working for Russian state broadcaster Russia Today has narrowly escaped a missile strike in southern Lebanon. The moment caught on camera.
Including the Al-Marj outpost opposite Merkaba, and carried out drone strikes on the Al-Raheb site near Aitar al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted.
Man, that was close. This image, pulled from the footage, shows the missile moments before making impact as RT's Lebanon bureau chief, Steve Sweeney, and his cameraman, Ali Reader, were crossing a bridge. So it's been zoomed in there. That's what, 10, 15 metres? They have received treatment for shrapnel injuries. After leaving hospital, the reporter blamed Israel for what he described as a deliberate attack.
We've been treated in hospital for our injuries. I had a shrapnel wound in my arm, deeply embedded in the muscle here. That's been taken out, and here it is in this pot here. But what I do want to say is that this was a deliberate, targeted attack on journalists. There's no mistake about it. This was an Israeli precision strike.
Israel says they were warned. The IDF released a statement claiming the region where the strike occurred was being used by Hezbollah to transport weapons and move terrorists. So part of the statement reads, prior to the strikes, warnings were published to ensure that civilians distance themselves from the crossings in order to reduce civilian harm. In footage released in the past few hours, a journalist is seen at the Kazmir crossing, that'd be it there. An explicit warning had been issued regarding this area. The crossing was struck after sufficient time had passed since the warnings.
All right, guys, here we are back on the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast, and today we're going to get right into it. In today's war, truth is often the first casualty, and those tasked with documenting reality, journalists are increasingly finding themselves not just observers of a conflict, but victims within it. The modern battlefield does not always distinguish clearly between combatants and civilians, and when a reporter is nearly killed by a precision strike, the implications ripple far beyond a single incident. In March of 2026, one British journalist, war correspondent Steve Sweeney, narrowly survived an explosion in southern Lebanon that sparked a series of allegations and denials and a growing international debate involving the military of Israel. This is not just a story of one incident. It is deep, evidence-based exploration of what happened, the competing narratives surrounding it, and the legal implications, and more importantly, the broader patterns of risks facing journalists in modern warfare. On March 19, 2026, Steve Sweeney was reporting from the southern Lebanon near Al-Qasmiya Bridge, a spot that had become increasingly volatile amid escalating tensions between Israel and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah. This region, long considered a flashpoint, had seen heightened military activity, including Israeli surveillance, artillery fire, and airstrikes targeting what is described as Hezbollah infrastructure and positions. However, the journalists like Sweeney often operate in such areas precisely because they are strategically significant, providing the real-time coverage of developments that shape global understanding of conflict. However, this proximity to active military targets inherently carries immense risk. As Sweeney and his cameraman, Ali Rida, were actively filming a segment, an explosion suddenly detonated just meters from their position. The blast was powerful and immediate, sending debris flying and knocking both men to the ground. Video footage of the incident widely circulated across international media that captures the terrifying moments in which the strike occurs, clearly showing the journalists wearing protective gear labeled press, a universally recognized marker, intended to identify them as non-combatants under international humanitarian law. The visibility of these markers has become one of the central points in the debate that has followed. The physical consequences were severe but not fatal. Sweeney sustained shrapnel injuries while his cameraman was also wounded. Both men had survived, but the narrow margin between life and death became overwhelming to anyone who had watched the footage. The explosion did not occur hundreds of meters away or even at a distance that might suggest a stray or misguided strike. It landed dangerously close, raising immediate and unavoidable questions about targeting, intent, and the accountability. Hey guys, just wanted to cut in here right now to just let you know and to remind you that I'm going to start a new segment. It's called the Unfiltered Political Lens Stories. So make sure to check that out. And this will be our very first one. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Now let's get back to the video. In the aftermath, Sweeney and his affiliated media organization put forward a series of allegations that the strike may have been deliberate. This claim is not based on a single factor, but rather a combination of observations and experiences. First, the journalists were clearly identifiable as members of the press. Second, the precision and proximity of the strike suggested a level of targeting and accuracy that some argue would make it misidentification less likely. Thirdly, Sweeney himself was referenced prior to the experiences in conflict zones where he felt his safety was compromised in ways that went beyond just randomly happening, including the near-miss incidents involving gunfire and what he described as suspicious targeting patterns. These elements taken together form the basis of the claim that this was not simply an incident or an accident of war. The incident quickly drew the attention of international watchdogs, including the committees to protect journalists, which called for a full and transparent investigation. Such calls are standard in cases where journalists are injured or killed in conflict zones, particularly when there is evidence suggesting that the possibility of a deliberate targeting. The role of the organization, like the Committee to Protect Journalists, is to advocate for accountability and to ensure that incidents involving media personnel are not overlooked or dismissed without the proper scrutiny. However, the official response from Israel presents a starkly different narrative. The Israeli Defense Forces categorically denied any intention to target journalists, stating that the strike was directed at legitimate military objectives associated with Hezbollah activity. According to the IDF, the area in question was part of the active combat zone where military operations were ongoing, and warnings had been issued advising civilians to evacuate or avoid the vicinity. The Israeli military emphasized its adherence to issues advising civilians to evacuate and avoid the area. They emphasized its adherence to international law, asserting that it does not target civilians or journalists, and that all operations are conducted with the utmost of minimizing unintended harm. And the clash of narratives brings us to the one legal and ethical issue: intent. Under the international humanitarian law, intentionally targeting journalists is considered a war crime. However, proving intent requires more than circumstantial evidence. It involves demonstrating that the strike was knowingly directed at civilians or that there was reckless disregard for their presence. In many cases, including the one, such proof is difficult to obtain, particularly when military intelligence targeting decisions and operational activity remain classified. The ambiguity surrounding that further complicated by the force of modern warfare in regions like southern Lebanon. Military groups such as Hezbollah are known to operate within civilian areas, embedding themselves in towns, villages, and other areas that would otherwise be protected under international law. Israel has repeatedly argued that this tactic effectively blurs the lines between civilian and military targets, increasing the likelihood of collateral damage. Critics, however, counter that presence of militants does not absolve militaries of their obligation to protect civilians, and that repeated incidents involving civilian harm may indicate a failure to adequately adjust their tactics. The incident involving Sweeney must also be viewed within the broader pattern of journalist risk in the region. Since the escalation of the conflict in both Gaza and Lebanon, numerous journalists have been killed or injured while reporting from the front lines. Some advocacy groups have suggested that the frequency and nature of these incidents warrant a closer examination, raising the concerns about whether journalists are being adequately protected, or whether they are increasingly becoming casualties of war without sufficient accountability. Now, Israel maintains that such incidents are tragic but unavoidable given the complexity and intensity of the environment. Another critical aspect of the case is the role of warnings. The IDF has stated that issued warnings for civilians to avoid the area where the strike occurred, which suggests warnings are in important compliance with international law, that they do not automatically eliminate responsibility, and journalists, by the very nature of their work, often operate in areas that has been deemed dangerous, or even evacuated, as their role is to document events as they unfold. This also creates a tension between the military advisories and the realities of journalism, where being present in high-risk zones is often necessary to capture the truth. Now, the video evidence itself plays a significant role in shaping public perception. Unlike many incidents in war where details are or dispute due to lack of footage, this event has partially captured on camera, which is helping provide a visual record of the explosion and its proximity to the journalist. And here you will see the clip.
To the Middle East, and a British reporter working for Russian state broadcaster Russia Today has narrowly escaped a missile strike in southern Lebanon, the moment caught on camera.
Including the Al-Marj outpost opposite Merkaba, and carried out drone strikes on the Al-Raheb site near Aitar al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted.
However, even such evidence and the key questions that remain unanswered, the footage shows what happened, but it does not reveal why it happened. It cannot determine whether the strike was intentionally aimed at the journalist or whether it was targeting something nearby. And in analyzing the incident, it is essential to maintain a careful distinction between confirmed facts and allegations. The confirmed facts are clear. A strike occurred, it happened extremely close to clearly marked press crew, and it resulted in injuries. The allegations that strike was a targeted assassination attempt are serious, but remain unproven. The denial by Israel is equally clear, but without independent verification, two cannot be fully validated or dismissed on whether that had occurred or not. This unresolved tension is emblematic of the larger issue in modern conflicts, the difficulty of achieving accountability. Investigations into such incidents are often hindered by limited access or political pressure, and that inherent challenge of gathering evidence in active war zones. Even when investigations are conducted, their findings may be contested or rejected by one side or the other, leaving the truth fragmented and incomplete. Ultimately, the near-fatal strike on Steve Sweeney serves as a powerful reminder of the risks faced by journalists and the determining truth in war. It highlights the fragile balance between the military objectives and civilian protection, the challenges of interpreting the evidence, and the enduring fight in transparency and accountability. Whether this incident will ever be definitively classified as deliberate attack or tragic consequences, it remains uncertain, but its impact on the conversation and journalist safety and the conduct of modern warfare is undeniable. Now, as we step back from the details of this harrowing incident, one reality becomes impossible to ignore. In today's conflict, even those who are there to document the truth are not immune from becoming part of the story. The case of Steve Sweeney leaves us with unanswered questions, competing narratives, and a lingering sense of uncertainty that reflects the broader fog of war. Was this a calculated strike, a catastrophic error, or an unavoidable outcome of a volatile battlefield? The answer may lie in investigations yet to be completed, evidence yet to be uncovered, or truths that may never fully emerge. What it is certain is, however, that the stakes for journalists and for accountability and for integrity of information itself have never been higher. I want to thank you once again for tuning in to the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast. As always, I want to thank you. Please leave your comments in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace. Hope you all have a good day. All right, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember that there will be a new segment called Stories starting now officially on the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.